parents asking if this Spanish line, a lot of them having where to put their questions and stuff like this. We're just basically trying to help them out as much as we can.
Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to Track 1, Workshop 1, the IEP process. My name is Lauren Klein and I work with Family and Community Engagement here in the Special Education Office. I'm very excited to introduce Shaw Powell-Scott, the Director of Family Support. What she does is help address concerns of families of students with disabilities by working with families and also school leaders. So you are in excellent hands today. If you require interpretation in Spanish, I'm going to introduce our Spanish interpreter, Ying, to share that information. Ying, can you turn on your speaker?
I'm sorry, I'm Mandarin interpreter.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Ying, my apologies. Caesar is going to introduce the information in Spanish and then Ying will join us for Mandarin.
Noches, si usted nos está acompañando esta noche y desea escuchar el audio en español, puede llamar al siguiente número de teléfono 347-966-4114 e ingresar el número de conferencia 148-478-58 numeral. Si usted nos está acompañando esta noche en este espacio virtual y a usted le gustaría escuchar esta conferencia en español, por favor marque el siguiente número de teléfono 347-966-4114 e ingresar el número de conferencia 148-478-58 numeral. Por favor, si les pido que sean tan amables y poner el botón de mudo en sus dispositivos para no escuchar ningún ruido de fondo. Gracias. Montan.
Thank you, Caesar. Yang, can you share the information for Mandarin interpretation?
Yeah, sure. This is Mandarin announcement. 晚上好，收听中文翻译频道的，请拨打347-966-4114，然后输入密码或会议 ID 946-644-234，井号键。中文翻译频道，请拨打347-966-4114，然后输入密码或会议 ID 946-644-234，井号键。如果您想听普通话音频，但想待在这个虚拟的会议室当中，并且在电脑上看到会议，请将电脑调到静音，然后用电话拨打普通话会议频道。再说一遍，中文翻译频道，请拨打347-966-4114，然后输入密码或会议 ID 946-644-234，井号键。谢谢 ，Thank you.
I've also put the Spanish and the Mandarin interpretation lines in the chat, so you can access them there as well. We also have Jose offering American Sign Language interpretation. Thank you, Jose. Now, Shaw's going to get started with her presentation. If you have questions throughout, please put them in the Q&A. We'll be answering them throughout the presentation, but we're going to hopefully save most of them for the end so we can share them with all of you, since we'll probably have many of the same questions. And with that, let me introduce Shaw. Thank you. Shaw, your volume. You're muted still.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you, families, stakeholders, team members. I'm so excited and so happy to be here with you all today. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the IEP process. I'm going to start my presentation now. And as Lauren introduced, I am Shaw Powell-Scott. I am the Director of Family Support within the Office of Special Education, and I manage, direct, and resolve escalations for families who have special education concerns. We're going to talk a little bit today about the IEP process. So let's start today and talk a little bit about our goals for this workshop. Our goals for this workshop is to provide participants with tools to support families, share information to help prepare families to understand and meaningfully participate in the IEP process, ensure awareness of the resources available to answer those questions about student special education needs and services, provide information about families' due process rights, and share a little bit of contact information for DOE special education teams and community resources, which we'll also do in the following session. Please drop your questions in the chat, and we will have lots of time later to discuss, and a little bit more time this afternoon as well. Today we're going to cover making an initial referral, evaluations, IEP meetings, supports and services, school settings, at-home resources for families, getting special education support, contacts and resources. We'll have our Q&A and some final thoughts. Making an initial referral. For a child to be evaluated for special education services, a referral must be made. How do you make that referral? The referral must be in writing. It may be made by the family or a DOE school official. The referral should describe the concerns about the child's development, learning, and/or behavior, state that you are requesting a special education evaluation, list any services the child has received or is currently receiving, include the child's full legal name and date of birth, include your name, address, and a telephone number where you can best be reached. I'd like to highlight that there is no magic language to use in your special education referral, and your school team can assist you with that referral as well. It should also state your preferred language if it is not English. Making a referral. Where to send the referral. For preschool age students, to refer a preschool age child, you would email or fax the referral letter to the appropriate district Committee on Preschool Special Education, which is also known as your CPSE. The links in today's presentation are live links, and they will be available for you after this presentation is over. For school-age students in public school, you can email, fax, or give the written referral to the principal or staff member in the student's school. For school-age students enrolled in private, religious, or charter schools, or not enrolled in school, you can email or fax the referral letter to your local district Committee on Special Education, also known as your CSC. You may also email special education at schools.nyc.gov or call 311 if you are unable to reach a school. What happens after you've submitted the referral? After the referral, preschool age students will receive a referral packet from the CPSC, which includes a notice that the referral was received, a list of approved evaluation sites, a consent for initial evaluation form, information about families' rights, and a medical form. School-age students will be sent a notice of referral letter, which explains families' rights, provides the name and telephone number of a person to call if there are questions, and requests a meeting with the school social worker for a social history interview. The interview will be held in the family's preferred language or mode of communication with the help of an interpreter upon request. Consent. The family will be asked to sign a consent for initial evaluation form in their preferred language. Even if the family made the referral, they must still give the consent for the process to begin. If a family chooses not to give consent, the student will not be evaluated. Evaluation. After consent is provided, we have 60 calendar days to evaluate, and if found eligible for special education, 60 school days to place the student. An initial evaluation will consist of a psychoeducational assessment, a physical, a social history, an observation of the student, and any other assessments needed to explore areas of the suspected disability. During blended and remote learning, special education evaluations will use remote methods to the extent possible, and in-person assessment only when necessary. School psychologists will first use a comprehensive data-driven model to assess students. All aspects of this form of assessment can be conducted remotely and through socially distanced classroom observations and clinical interviews if needed. If the school psychologist determines that face-to-face assessments for the student are necessary, the school psychologist will conduct only the testing needed to identify a disability to avoid unnecessarily prolonged assessment interactions. IEP meetings. Families are invited to an individualized education program IEP meeting after the student's evaluation is completed. At the meeting, the IEP team, of which the family is a member, will review information from the evaluation and other sources to determine if the student is eligible for special education services. If so, the team will work together at the meeting to develop an IEP. IEP meetings will continue to be conducted by phone or video conference. Someone from the student's IEP team will reach out to discuss how the IEP meeting will be held and to ensure the family has the materials needed to participate effectively. For any questions about their child's IEP or to request an IEP meeting, the family may contact the student's special education teacher or related service provider. Parent members. Parent members contribute valuable information and support to families who request their attendance at an IEP meeting. Parent members receive training and go through a certification process so they can assist and support other parents at IEP meetings when requested. Parent members participate in discussions about eligibility for special education services, educational planning and goal setting, learning in the least restrictive environment, also known as LRE, understanding the evaluation and placement process. They also help to ensure that the student's family members understand and are comfortable with the IEP team's decisions and have had their questions and concerns addressed. If you would like a parent member at your child's IEP meeting, you can make this request in writing to your school or local Committee on Special Education, also known as CSE, at least 72 hours in advance. Supports and services. Assistive technology, also known as AT. Assistive technology tools help students communicate with teachers and classmates, complete their schoolwork, and participate in school programs and activities. All assistive technology is listed on a student's IEP or 504 plan. Behavior supports. Families of students with behavior challenges may partner with school staff to decide what assessments and interventions may be needed to change those behaviors. Schools have a system of behavior support and intervention in place to help students manage behavior. Related services. Related services can help students take part in school and achieve their educational goals. Recommendations for related services are a part of the IEP. Types of related services include vision education services, sign language interpreter, school nurse services, physical therapy, occupational therapy, hearing education, counseling, and assistive technology. Specialized transportation. Specialized transportation is also called curb to school bus service. It's curb to school bus service. The DOE provides specialized transportation to students whose individual education programs, IEPs, recommend this service, or to other students with disabilities who cannot take public transportation. Specialized transportation refers to school buses that are staffed both by a school bus driver and an attendant. Supports and services continued. Other special education services include other programs, services, and aids that may be recommended on a student's IEP are recommendations and modifications, accessible education materials, adaptive equipment, adapted physical education, alternate assessment, declassification services, extended school year services, paraprofessional services, and travel training. Testing accommodations. Students with individualized education programs and students with 504 plans may be eligible to receive testing accommodations. Testing accommodations remove barriers to the test-taking process so that students with disabilities and multilingual English language learners, MILs or ELs, are able to demonstrate their knowledge and skills. Extended school year services for July and August. ESY services are special education instructional programs and/or related services provided during July and August. ESY services are different from general education summer school. Building accessibility. The DOE has a variety of school buildings, which include inaccessible buildings, partially accessible buildings, and fully accessible buildings. School settings. The DOE has a variety of school settings to service students with disabilities, including District 1 to 32 schools. The majority of students with IEPs receive their educational programs in the same schools that they would attend if they did not have disabilities. The programs a student may receive in a district school are general education, integrated co-teaching services, also known as ICT, and special class services. Specialized program. We also offer many specialized programs in district schools to special education students, including Academics, Career, and Essential Skills Program, also known as the ACES program, Autism Spectrum Disorders Program, or ASD programs, Autism Spectrum Disorders Summer Programs, Bilingual Special Education, also known as BSE, and the IEP program. District 75. District 75 provides highly specialized instructional support for students with significant challenges, such as autism spectrum disorders, significant cognitive delays, or emotional disturbances. District 75 provides instructional support in a wide variety of settings and locations, including special classes co-located in District 1 to 32 schools, school buildings where all students have IEPs, general education classrooms, agencies, hospitals, and at home. Other school settings include other educational settings. New York State Education Department approved non-public schools provide programs for children whose educational needs cannot be met in public school programs. These schools serve students with disabilities. They provide programs for children whose educational needs cannot be met within the public school program. New York State Education Department supported schools. These schools, also known as 4201 schools, provide intensive special education services to eligible children who are deaf, blind, or have severe emotional disturbances or physical disabilities. Home and hospital instruction provides educational services for all school-age children, grades K to 12, who are unable to attend due to orthopedic, non-orthopedic medical, or psychiatric reasons. Charter schools. Private or religious school students in New York City may also receive special education services. Private or religious school students in New York City who at their family's expense may be eligible to receive special education services from the DOE. Okay, we talked about parent members. Let's talk a little bit about at-home resources. So we have plenty of at-home resources for families to learn more about assistive technology, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. Families can learn this information at home. These are live links, and the presentation will be available at the conclusion of this session, and you're able to click on the links and actually go to the pages and view some of our at-home resources. We have our Get Ready to Learn project, which you can also click, and it will take you to information about resources for shifting to new online platform service delivery, how to get started in Microsoft Teams, and how to get started in Google Classroom. We offer, of course, our Beyond Access series, which actually has live access on YouTube as well. The Beyond Access series is presented by the New York City DOE, our Office Division of Specialized Instruction and Student Support. This series supports families of students with disabilities by providing sessions on topics around special education. For families trying to access our translated captions on the Beyond Access series, you can turn on closed captioning first by clicking the CC icon, then in the setting gear, select Subtitles CC, then select Auto Translate, and select the language. Getting special education support. The very first line that we encourage families to do when they have a question or concern about their child's special education services or the IEP process is speaking to your child's IEP team. Your child's IEP team includes your child's teacher, the school psychologist, the social worker. Families themselves are members of the IEP team, and your school team can assist you with learning more about your child's services and needs. For children attending preschool, a charter school, a private or parochial school, or a non-public school, you can contact your Committee on Preschool Special Education, your CPSC, or the Committee on Special Education, the CSE, for school-age students. Getting help from district or central staff. For districts 1 through 32, you can also contact your family support coordinators within the superintendent's office. For District 75, you can contact the superintendent's office. The central office. If your concerns are unable to be resolved at the school or district level, it may be escalated to the central special education office. The central special education office, which would be our team, is specialeducation@schools.nyc.gov. Once again, that's specialeducation@schools.nyc.gov. We'll talk very briefly about families' rights and due process. Families may request mediation. Mediation is a confidential, voluntary process that allows people to resolve disputes without a formal due process hearing. You may request an impartial hearing. At an impartial hearing, a hearing officer listens to both sides and decides what, if anything, went wrong and how to fix it. You may also file a complaint with New York State. If you believe the school district has violated federal or state law related to education of students with disabilities, you may submit a written complaint to the New York State Education Department. Talk a little bit about our contacts and our resources. How can I locate contact information for a school during remote learning? You can search for your child's school using the search box at schools.nyc.gov. You can enter the name of your child's school, click the link that appears, and that will take you to your school's profile page. Or you can search for your child's school using Find a School. Once the school profile is located on Find a School, you can email addresses for school teams are located in the General Information tab. District team contact information is located in the District Contact tab. You can right-click or click on staff names to send an email or obtain the email address. Here we have a list of contacts that can answer questions and resolve concerns about special education evaluation, supports, and services. Once again, for all students with disabilities, we're here to support. The Division of Specialized Instruction and Student Support can be reached at specialeducation@schools.nyc.gov. We have a special education hotline, 718-935-2007 or 311. For questions or concerns about related services, families can reach out to related services at schools.nyc.gov. The Impartial Hearing Office is IHO inquiry at schools.nyc.gov. For preschool age students with disabilities, you can reach out to your Committee on Preschool Special Education, which is your local CPSE. Once again, reminding families, these are live links that will take you directly to those websites. For pre-K for all and elementary school enrollment, you can reach out to ES enrollment at schools.nyc.gov. Pre-K for all programs, early childhood at schools.nyc.gov. Pre-K for all 504 accommodations, early childhood policy at schools.nyc.gov. For students with disabilities moving to kindergarten, you can reach out to our Turning 5 team, which is turning5@schools.nyc.gov. More contacts and resources. Students in DOE district schools, grades K through 12. This link will take you to our community and high school superintendents. Students in District 75 programs can use a Find a School tool to find contact information for their appropriate school, or reach out to the District 75 Superintendent's Office, D75 info at schools.nyc.gov. Students attending or interested in attending specialized programs, if you have a general question, you can reach out to specialized programs at schools.nyc.gov. Questions about the ACES program, which is Academic Career and Essential Skills Program, ACES programs at schools.nyc.gov. Questions or concerns about autism spectrum disorder, ASD, or NEST or Horizon programs, ASD programs at schools.nyc.gov. Questions or concerns about bilingual special education programming, you can reach out to BSE programs at schools.nyc.gov. For questions or concerns about your student not attending or in a non-public, private, parochial, or charter school, you can reach out to your local Committee on Special Education, also known as your CSC. Our Transition and College Access Centers, also known as TCACs, support students with IEPs and their families through the transition from school to adult life. Our TCACs offer trainings, workshops, and opportunities that provide the tools needed to plan for adult life. You can contact the center in your borough or visit them for help. We have one in each borough: Brooklyn, Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, and Staten Island. For Brooklyn, you can reach out to BKLYNTCAC at schools.nyc.gov. For the Bronx, you can reach out to BXTCAC at schools.nyc.gov. For the Manhattan location, you can reach out to MMTCAC at schools.nyc.gov. For the Queens location, you may reach out to QNTCAC at schools.nyc.gov. For our Staten Island location, SITCAC at schools.nyc.gov. Additional resources include travel training. Travel training is training that enables high school age students with disabilities other than blindness to use public transportation and travel independently. And the contact for travel training is Stephen Garcia, sgarcia12 at schools.nyc.gov. We also keep a list of outside contacts and resources, and some of those outside contacts and resources will actually be participating in our sessions today. Every single DOE office is a potential internal stakeholder who may be able to assist in the resolution of a special education concern. So it's not only the special education office, we have our directors of special education and administrators of special education who work in our borough special education offices, supervisors of school psychologists, our offices of related services, this, of course, the Central Special Education Office, the Office of School Health, Office of Pupil Transportation, again, the borough and central offices, enrollment, admissions, early childhood teams, and our committees on special education. So we have reached the end of our IEP process discussion, and I look forward to looking at some of your Q&A. Thank you so much for spending time today learning about the IEP process, and I am going to take some time to review the Q&A.
Thank you, Shel. That was excellent. And I'm so glad that we have another 20 minutes to answer questions because we got a ton of them. So where to begin? First of all, we're getting a ton of questions about how can I access these slides or this presentation. Everything is being recorded and all participants will receive an email after the forum with a survey and also with all of the recordings. They'll be posted on our Beyond Access Series YouTube channel. So you'll be able to watch these at your leisure along with all of the other workshops from the other tracks. Now, on to the more technical IEP questions. So let's begin with this one. A family asked, I'm unhappy with the outcome of my child's IEP meeting. What can I do next?
That's a great question. That's a fantastic question. The first step in the process would be to speak with your child's IEP team. For families who have questions or concerns about their child's IEP or disagree with the recommendation that was made at the meeting, the first step would be to speak with your child's IEP team. If after speaking with your child's IEP team or CSC, you're unable to resolve the issue at that level, I encourage you to reach out to our special education inbox, specialeducation@schools.nyc.gov, where we will look into the concerns and assist with resolving.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question, how often are reevaluations done? And can I ask for one whenever I feel like it's necessary?
Sure. So if a family has a question or concern about reevaluation, just addressing the question around whether a family can ask for one whenever they feel it's necessary, again, the first step would be to discuss with your child's school team to discuss what your concerns are and to work with the school to decide if a reevaluation is necessary at that time. So the first step would be to speak with your child's school team and discuss your concerns about reevaluation, or if you have outside evaluations that you'd like to share with this, with the team, and possibly have your child's IEP amended. The first step would be to speak with your child's IEP team.
Okay, and I would just add that typically reevaluations are conducted every 3 years, but there are many circumstances in which they're done more frequently if families decide that that's needed. Another question, a really good one, a family asked, if I require interpretation or would like a parent member at my child's IEP meeting, what do I do and how soon do I need to make that request? Or how far in advance of the IEP meeting, rather?
For a parent member, you would reach out to your school or your CSC team at least 72 hours in advance of the IEP meeting. If you require interpretation services, you can reach out at any time to let your special education team know so that they can make the appropriate arrangements to have interpretation translation services provided for your family.
We also got some questions and interest about actually becoming a parent member and what that process looks like, what the process looks like, and also where families can get more information about that.
Absolutely. So again, we have in today's presentation, the parent member section, we actually have live links there. So that information does live on our website at schools.nyc.gov under the special education tab. And in today's presentation, which will still be available to families, we actually have live links. So parent members actually receive training and go through a certification process so they can assist and support other parents at their IEP meetings. when requested. So training is provided by 2 parent centers, one which is Include NYC. The training is offered around New York City. After completing the training, parents receive a certificate and information about those next steps. Parents can reach out to parent IEP member at schools.nyc.gov. If you have questions or concerns about requesting a parent member or becoming a parent member, you can also reach out to special education at schools.nyc.gov, and we'd be more than happy to connect you with the appropriate team.
Okay, another great question we got is, does the IEP stop? Is there an age or a grade at which a child no longer has an IEP?
There is no age. Well, New York City public school students are entitled to a free and appropriate education until age 21. So the IEP would continue as long as the student continues in attending a New York City, attending school, whatever school setting that may be. There is no particular time. The student will receive services, appropriate services, until that time in which the student may no longer need, or they graduate or move on to adult services.
And I would also add that, if a child goes on to post-secondary education or some sort of college program, there are no IEPs in college. So like Shaw said, once a child turns 21 or graduates, they no longer have an individualized education program. But there are ways, of course, that students can seek out supports and services at their universities, or of course, the transition planning team will work very closely with families to make sure they have the supports they need as adults. More questions. Okay. I'm going to take a look at the chat because they're coming in hot.
They're coming in hot.
They are. We're getting a lot of, okay, we got a bunch of questions about the difference between 504s and IEPs. And I know you gave some contact information, but what that looks like or when a parent would ask for one versus the other.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about that. And I know that can be a very confusing process for families. So 504 comes out of our Section 504 Act, which requires public schools to offer accommodations for eligible students with disabilities. These accommodations help students with special health needs to participate in DOE programs and activities on an equal basis with their peers who do not have disabilities. The student qualifies for 504 accommodations if they have a physical or mental impairment, and that impairment substantially limits at least one major life activity.
Okay. We got also some, oh, sorry, Shaw, are you
still? No, please, go ahead.
We got some questions, and I know we're going to talk a lot about special education supports and services in our next workshop about the continuum, but some families are asking about supports for students with behavior challenges. Do you recommend we hold this question, or do you want to speak to it a bit?
I will speak very briefly and encourage families to absolutely participate in the appropriate session to learn more. That's going to go really in detail, but I will talk really briefly about behavior supports. I think it's very, very important. So we partner with school staff to decide what assessments and interventions are needed to change any concerning behaviors. So part of that process is the school conducts assessments. There are classroom observations and a functional behavior assessment. There are many different types of interventions for students who require behavioral supports. Those interventions may be whole school supports, they may be classroom interventions, and also individualized supports. So each student, and this would depend on the student's individualized needs. Students may also receive a behavior intervention plan. That behavior intervention plan targets those behaviors, sets goals, sets up some positive behavioral interventions and strategies, provides accommodations and modifications, and the school and family will work on how that plan will be monitored and updated if needed. Counseling, as well as parent counseling and training. So there's many different ways to provide supports for students with behavioral challenges.
Okay. Some families have said, I want to get services for my child, but I don't have private insurance or I can't afford it. Do you think you could clarify how students receive special education services through their IEP and how it's not necessarily related to insurance in any way?
Absolutely. The New York City DOE provides a free and appropriate education for students. That includes related services. If your child requires related services, those related services will help your student take part in school and achieve their educational goals. Those services are of no cost to the family, they are free of charge, and they are provided by the New York City Department of Education.
Another question, my child's really doing great. Can I take him out of special education services? How does that work, and is it up to me?
So I would, of course, defer back for families to speak with their child's special education team. Families, of course, are part of that IEP team. They do have a right to withdraw consent for their child's special education services. We do encourage families to speak with their child's IEP team to talk about transitioning out and appropriate ways for your child to receive support if you're thinking about your child no longer receiving special education services. So that would be a conversation to have with your child's special education team or your CSC or CPSC team.
Thank you. Another question, my child has an IEP and is now going into a new grade. Do I need to again request that my child is evaluated for special education services? Does he need a new IEP for a new grade?
Your child will not require a new IEP for a new grade. The IEP will be updated annually, and your child's IEP follows them from school to school. So when your child starts that new school, they will be using that same IEP, and when their annual date for additional assessment comes up, the team will meet with them at that particular school. But your child's IEP follows them from school to school.
Okay, a few families have mentioned that they haven't received a copy of their child's IEP. What should they do in those circumstances?
If you have not received a copy of your child's IEP, you can speak with your child's IEP team and request it, and that may be your child's teacher, school psychologist, or social worker. Anyone in your child's school can support with obtaining a copy. If you're having difficulty connecting with your child's school team, please reach out to special education at schools.nyc.gov, and we'll be more than happy to connect you with the appropriate team and assist.
Thank you, Shah. I know these are coming really hot and fast.
No, it's okay. These are great questions.
We also get some questions from families who say that their child has a diagnosis. So perhaps from a psychologist, they've had an evaluation outside of school. So for example, this parent says that their child has a diagnosis of ADHD. Do they qualify for an IEP?
So decisions about eligibility for special education services are made within the context of evaluation in the IEP meeting. If you have an outside recommendation or diagnosis for your child, you would submit that information to your child's school team, who will meet with you and determine whether your child qualifies for special education services. The first step would actually be to provide that outside evaluation to the school team, who will determine if additional evaluation is necessary and if your child is eligible for special education services.
Okay. We have another question about special education. Is it continued in college? So maybe let's clarify that one more time.
Sure. So your child's IEP does not continue within the college setting or post-secondary setting. However, students who require special education services may receive appropriate supports within their post-secondary setting, but it will not be the IEP that they've had K through 12 that will follow them into the post-secondary setting. So it will not be that IEP. However, the students can receive appropriate accommodations as necessary in the post-secondary or college spectrum.
A question about testing accommodations. How can my child get them? And it says, will they extend it from year to year?
So that would be particular to your child's needs and eligibility. So to request testing accommodations, you would speak with your child's school team about your concerns, and the school will determine what through assessment whether your child is eligible for additional for those testing accommodations. So that conversation would start at the school team, and families would actually speak with, whether that's the child's teacher, a related service provider, about the concerns that they have, that you believe that your child requires testing accommodations, and the school will meet with you and discuss next steps to eligibility for those testing accommodations.
We have a question about disability classification versus diagnosis. And a family's asking how many disabilities can be put on the IEP. So I think it might be worth differentiating between the 13 disability classifications that can be listed on an IEP versus diagnoses that a child may get from a doctor.
Sure. So the diagnoses that your child may receive from their personal physician or an outside provider may not align with the New York City DOE's classifications for that would actually happen on the IEP, that would actually be provided on their IEP. So we can go over those classifications.
I think that'd be helpful.
Sure. Let me I want to bring them up so I can describe them with families as well. So I know this can be a very confusing, because families tend to think that a diagnosis made by, let's say, your family physician or a psychiatrist would align with our classifications. I'm going to describe the classifications that are used on an IEP. Autism, deaf blindness, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, learning disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, other health impairment, speech or language impairment, traumatic brain injury, and visual impairment. And how it differs is that your child may have a diagnosis or several diagnoses from outside that fit into one of these 13 classifications.
Thank you, Shaw. Having some questions about diplomas and graduation and whether or not children with IEPs can receive regular high school diplomas.
So that is a great question. And the answer is absolutely yes. Typically, students who receive special education services, they can receive a Regents diploma, a local diploma, as well as there are other options for students who may have alternate assessment. There are also graduation credentials that they may earn as well. So depending on your child's needs and your goals as a family, yes, there are many different options to earn a diploma, including, but not limited to, New York City Regents diploma.
We're receiving many questions about some specialized programs for students with autism spectrum disorder, specifically Horizon and Nest, and the process for that. I just want to acknowledge that we're going to talk more about that in the continuum of services, but that's sort of outside the IEP process. But yeah, we are going to get to those. So if I haven't answered your questions in the Q&A, I know that we will talk about that. Yes. Let's see. Another question. We're having a lot of questions about District 75 and when that is recommended versus a community school, which of course is very specific to your particular child. And some are wondering if it's because of behavior issues or emotional issues or only learning issues. And it can be a combination of many things. Shaw, I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, just piggybacking off of that. So a recommendation is unique to your child's individualized needs. So it would be very difficult to answer that as a general question. District 75 does provide highly specialized instructional support for students with a variety of very significant challenges, but it's unique to your child's specific needs.
Here's a good question. A parent is asking, does the IEP process determine whether a student is promoted to the following grade? How does IEP status and promotion work hand in hand, or does it not?
Okay, that's a little bit of a complex question. I may be looking into it. I may be looking into it a little bit too deep. So there is promotion criteria on student IEPs. There is promotion criteria on student IEPs. That's the short answer. If you have a very specific question about your child, I would encourage you to reach out to me at specialeducation@schools.nyc.gov. That way I can give you, an answer that's very specific to your child and their individualized needs. But the short answer is there is promotional criteria listed on student IEPs.
So Shaw, it is 4:50. I am so very grateful for the rapid fire way you answered all of these questions. If we didn't get to your question in the Q&A, we will do our best to answer it privately. You can also, as Shaw indicated, email specialeducation@schools.nyc.gov or one of the many other contacts that she shared today. This presentation is being recorded and will be shared with all participants after the forum. And we thank you so much. We hope you can join us for one of our next workshops. Take care, and please feel free to take a break.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Lauren, and everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, Shaw.
Thanks.